afternoon, everyone. I am Anna Perez. I am a Senior Relationship Manager for City National Bank's Entertainment Division. City National Bank has been the bank of the stars for the past 66 years, focusing on being the trusted advisor for both music and film. On behalf of City National Bank, I'd like to welcome you to our Fireside Chat, financial advice for musicians, with author, wealth, and business manager to the entertainment industry, Luis Barajas. Luis, welcome, and thank you for being part of this chat with us.
And it's always my pleasure.
That's great. I wanted to dive right in, Luis, because we don't have a lot of time to kind of sit around and not talk about this, but this is an important topic that I'd like to talk because you and I both are facing, obviously, a lot of musicians in this pandemic, but you're nationally recognized as an expert in the finance, often calling yourself a financial life healer, which I think is great. Having successfully provided your expertise to musicians in the entertainment industry, what financial advice would you give to musicians that are just getting started in the industry?
Yeah, the most important thing is that they need to realize that they're in the music business, and business is really important. And so with artists and writers and anybody in the music industry, they're very creative people, right? Very right-brain people. And so they do not pay attention to the business side. And so usually when I meet with them for the very first times, they've neglected that part of what they do. That's part of their profession. And so they need to pay attention to that, or at least hire people or bring in the right team to guide them through and make sure that they don't get in any type of financial trouble.
I completely agree. And, I always say as the banker, you always want to make sure you know who you are, who your banker is specifically, right, so that you can go to folks like yourself as, again, a financial expert, or myself, to kind of guide you on how to get started. And, that's super important. So, I come a lot into a lot of instances, for example, where musicians, composers living outside of the U.S., they either want to live abroad, they want to live here in the U.S., but they don't want to pay the taxes. They're just a little iffy about that, and I'm going to be very transparent with that. That's a huge conversation that always comes up. What recommendations would you provide to these artists, composers on taxes and possible implications of that?
Yeah,
of not filing.
Anna, well, let's start out with, I don't think anybody really wants to pay taxes.
Right.
There's some people they'll pay the same, everybody thinks they're overpaying, and I understand that it depends on what part of the country you're living in. But at the end of the day, when you start your business as a songwriter, as a performer, you have to realize that even though, let's say you set up as a single member LLC or as a corporation, you, believe it or not, have a partner. And it's Uncle Sam, or we call it Theo Sam, right? And you're part
right.
of the government, and you're going to have to, and it's a kind of a silent partner who actually wants to take a look at how much money you're making, what your expenses are, and then he wants his percentage, he wants his fair share. And right. So imagine that you are in partnership with someone else and they don't want to show you the financials, or they're not doing things properly. You would be upset. In fact, we see it all the time. We see constant lawsuits between managers and partners, and artists and everything else, because they're not doing the proper financials. So you have that level of responsibility. Secondly is that for artists that are U.S. Residents or U.S. citizens, it doesn't matter where they live, their income is taxed at a global level, right? And so one of the traps that we have with artists that are international that come to the United States is that even if they're not residents, even if they're not citizens, but if they've been here over 183 days over the last 3 years, they count the days kind of weird, right? But if you've been over there, you are now treated as basically as a resident, where you now have to declare all your income worldwide. So it's really important to work, again, with a professional who's keeping you abreast of this, because you can get into financial problems. Now, we're talking about international. You right. also have these things that you can get in trouble with called foreign bank account reporting, right? And so if I am working with you and I have my bank accounts at City National Bank, which I do, right?
Yeah.
and then I'm also working with a bank in Mexico for, let's say, a business that I have over there. I must report that bank account in Mexico and the assets if it's aggregated over $10,000. If I don't, the penalties are horrific. And if you neglect to do them, or if you know that you're doing it, you can even face jail time. So it's really important that you understand that that even if you're going to another country, that the U.S. government is not going to know that you're not doing business there. They'll find out. And so you want to do things right from the get-go.
Absolutely, absolutely. And another conversation that comes up as well is, should I be getting paid my royalties as a composer via my personal account, or should I establish myself as an entity? How can you talk basics at this point, or can you talk basics?
Yeah.
Should they, start off as an LLC, as a corporation, an S corp? How do you know the difference? What do you do?
Right. Well, there's different issues, right? There's tax issues, and I'm going to talk to you about something that people don't really think about, and that's death also. And as you know, I've worked with clients who have passed away, artists, right, handling their royalties. So it's always important that from the beginning you open up a company, whether it's a single member LLC. And again, we can't get into specifics because again, if you are like a non-resident, you can't set up as an S corporation. You're going to set up as an LLC. So there's different ways, but you should set up as a company. And right, also the reason why you want to do that is because if something were to happen to you and you were to pass away and you're now building a nice catalog of songs, you want to make sure that all those royalty streams continue not only while you're alive, but it can go to your family, it can go to your children, it can go to your parents after you've passed. So it's important to protect the rights that you own, because those songs will produce royalties for, it could be forever. I'm working
Correct.
With, I think she will be getting royalties for the next 100 years.
No, I completely agree. And we see that time and time again. And, on that note, is a trust, right? How do you get yourself going with that as well? Those are the little things that you want to make sure to prepare yourself, especially if you find yourself in a point where you now have, you're an artist and you're making it big, right? Whether it be you make your first 100,000 or you make your 1 million, if not above, you always want to make sure that you have yourself settled and know your finances, know that you should build yourself a trust. So that God forbid you're on a plane, you're somewhere else, you're traveling and some things happen.
Well, yeah. So the goal is always to protect the artist. And the protection is also, you see famous people walking around with bodyguards.
Yes.
Tell me, so what do you do? Honestly, it's really funny, right? I'll tell people like, I'm the financial police. I'm here to protect and to serve. Or I'm the financial bodyguard. Right. We want to make sure that the client has the right banking, the right insurance, the right tax structure. We want to make sure that they have a right estate plan. Now, I deal with a lot of international clients, and the problem is, Anna, that sometimes we have superstitions or we have cultural nuances that will block them from wanting to set up their trust, because they think that if they set up their estate plan with their will, the testamento, the fideicommos, right, and everything else, that they're going to die for some reason, right?
It's taboo.
So I think it's superstitions, but everybody actually, if somebody's listening to us today that is my client, they know what a pain in the butt I am about. We got to get your trust done. We got to get your trust done, and because I want to protect your foundation, your financial foundation.
Absolutely, I completely agree. During this, I'll shift conversations now. Now we're living in a pandemic. A year later, our environment has changed entirely. With musicians, no more touring at this point. What have you seen? What behaviors have you seen from your musical artists that you support? What's their day-to-day now versus before? What are they doing?
Yeah, so that emoji where they have that person that's going like this?
Yes, right.
That's my emoji. That's my emoji for this year.
Right.
I normally work maybe 55 hours a week. I don't work the 40 hours, somewhere around there. I have been working since March of last year, probably, I would say 12 hours a day, 7 days a week. And I'm not kidding you, because most of my artists have been touring. They're musicians. And guess what? They're not touring. So they have been home. And while they're starting to watch the TikToks or be on TikTok or do all these other things, they're reaching out to me with a whole bunch of business opportunities. And because people are approaching them, or they have time to sit down and think, or they're spending more than I've ever seen, right? I've had to have some serious conversations. I guess they're bored. They're bored in the house, and they're in the house bored, as there's a TikTok video on that as well.
Exactly.
And so they've been buying so much stuff, and I have to control their spending. And some of them have been working with their distributors, have been working with their record labels, they've been working with their publishing to get advances to get them through this period. We've even worked, Anna, we worked with you to go help our clients get those PPP loans to get them
Right.
over this past year, right? So
That's right.
it's been a really interesting year. I think that most of my clients have been more engaged when it comes to business. But it's like I said, my time has gone from 55 hours a week to 75 hours a week. And I sometimes have to kind of get people off the cliff because they want to invest in something that just doesn't make sense. So that's one of the things that I hadn't seen in 25 years. I've been doing this for 30 years.
Oh, wow. Yeah, no kidding. I think all of us are, well, too familiar with the amount of hours that we're all working. But, I definitely see on my end a lot of musicians using this time for expression. Composers exactly are going out there. They're teaming up with other artists, and, they're making magic happen during this time. So
well, that's
you
know what, that's a great point, because I do have clients that have been writing more songs.
Yes.
Before, I got one client that moved himself to he's born here, raised here, moved himself to a ranch in Mexico, and I think that I've heard so far he's written close to like 80 songs in this past year.
Oh, wow. That's amazing.
Very creative as well. Very much more creative.
Very good. But, the point of all of this is that, whenever you see or we experience, whether it be a pandemic, a recession, you name it, you have to just sort of shift that mentality and see what else is out there for us to sort of see other revenue streams in order to continue that income. Because, again, their musical talent is, as you said, it's right-brained. So they want to make sure to find out how and what else they need to do in order to make some revenue coming in, since of course the touring has ended. Now, in terms of artists, what kind of advice would you give artists that are looking to preserve those earnings?
Yeah, so one of the things that I have always seen from every single artist, it's not like 99.9, it's 100% of the time they've come, even if they're iconic artists who've been around for a long time or they're just starting artists, they don't set the proper financial structure to build their wealth. And they really focus on the creative part and actually spending part. But one of the first things that I do from the beginning is when they open up their entity, I also set up a pension plan for them, a retirement plan.
That's great.
I get some money from one account to another account, and we help them lower their taxes. And believe it or not, it has been my experience that these clients, these musicians, treat that money as kind of sacred money. They don't treat it as their bank account. So even though we do investing as well, right? And so even if we have them in brokerage accounts, they will still pull money out of there if they need it, or if they need to spend on buying a car or a watch or something, they'll still pull it out of there. I don't recommend it, but they do it. But when I move money to their pension account, they will leave it alone. Now, the other thing is that I see some of them, if they do come in, they've had an IRA where they've only put away $6,000. We can do a 401k profit sharing cash balance plan. I've got artists putting away $200,000 a year,
Wow.
Saving themselves maybe sometimes up to $45,000, $50,000 in taxes, or $100,000 in taxes by doing that. And we want that money being saved and grown and also invested, whether they're investing in real estate. We want to diversify their holdings and not have it all in one place. This year, because of, again, the stock market went crazy after the March of last year, I have a lot of clients that invested in the stock market this year. We've done really well. But again, I always ask them that we need to diversify their holdings so they can continue to build wealth. That's what we want.
Absolutely. And so what are some of the errors and mistakes that you see your clients making when it comes to managing their money? How can that be avoided?
Yeah, very first one is they do not put money away for their taxes, right? The very first thing that we see. What we do at Business Management Lab is we automatically open up a different savings account. We call it their tax account. And we automatically take about a third of what they hold and put it in that account. So when it's time to file their tax returns or do their quarterly estimated tax payments, we have money. They're not at the very end having to come up with one big, large payment because it's just too difficult. That's the very first mistake that we have. The second mistake, financial mistake, is when they do have staff, They put their staff, they pay them either cash or they're paying them like independent contractors. They really need to put them on payroll. So we're trying to avoid those financial problems that will come back and haunt them from the IRS or other taxing authorities. They don't put any money, they don't build any cash reserves. They think, because again, most artists tend to be very young. And so they have this intuitive feeling that they're on the rise, they're going to be making a lot of money, and they think it's going to be like that forever, right?
Forever.
Going to Spotify and take a look at artists from the 70s and 80s and 90s and whatever, and you say, whatever happened to them? So the goal is that they don't save enough money for their future, because some of them will make a lot of money in a very short time period, but they're going to live a long time after that. So how do we build enough wealth in that short time period to actually, they can live off the rest of the money?
Oh, wow. No kidding. We see that a lot. And I think this is an important topic for anyone that's just about to start this career and that's just contemplating, is this the right avenue for me or is it not? And if it is, you always have to have that financial thought on the side of your mind and make sure that you have to take care of yourself financially. And it's not just about what you're earning today, rather how to expand that over the long term of your life and or career.
Yeah.
So
the other thing is, just real quickly, is just selecting the right team, right, that they're going to have. So at the beginning, if they don't have a lot of money, there's not going to be a lot of business managers who want to work with them, but there will be some business managers.
Absolutely.
And so
absolutely.
They want to bring the right attorney. They want to make sure they have the right manager. They want to make sure they have the right business manager, and also the banker, because you want to make sure that banker knows the entertainment side of the business.
Right. And we also, within City National Bank, we have it to where we help them, whether it be that they want to purchase their home, they want to finance their tour bus, or build their studio, so on and so forth, get a private jet. When you're at that level, those are the conversations that we have with our artists. But if you're just starting, you want to make sure to save that money and prepare yourselves financially, whether it be that you're filing your taxes, you're keeping your balance in order, taking care of that credit, because again, in the US, it's important to keep that credit in mind. It's paper for us. And if you want to build that credit, that's how you're going to be able to get, whether it be a loan, whether it be a credit card, so on and so forth. That's going to count for us. So it's super important for us to make sure to communicate that. And I know, Louis, you go through that as well with your clients and making sure that all of that's in order. But it's all about the beginning, not just at the end whenever you're a superstar. No, it's at the beginning that you want to make sure to do this.
Yeah.
So with that being said, I think it's important for us to talk about the importance of continuing to keep those books going and having this, myself as a trusted advisor, you as whether it be the CPA, the bookkeeper. I know we're running out of time. I've been prompted already, but this is a quick conversation that I wish we could keep having, because it's super important for us to make sure that we communicate this important topic for a lot of musicians that don't necessarily know what to do and how to get started. But I would, as you would say, whether it be contact your professional, your CPA, and or your banker. We are here to help. Wouldn't you agree, Louis?
Absolutely. I mean, and again, I don't consider myself an accountant, because even though we do the accounting and we do the bookkeeping, as the business and wealth manager, we're looking at everything as very holistic and multidimensional. And we want to help the client grow. We want to remove a lot of the business decision-making authority from them so they can focus on what they do best, right? The goal is allow them, but they have to build a team that they trust.
That's right.
End of the day, if you don't trust your accountant or a business manager or banker, you have to get rid of that relationship. It's all about trust.
Thank you, Louis, and I couldn't agree with you more. So, we are at the end of our fireside chat. This went extremely quick for me. I'm sure it did for you as well, Louis. Thank you, Louis, for being a part of this panel, for sharing your expertise with our audience, and we hope that this will help many of our artists continue to grow in their musical careers. And on behalf of City National Bank, I want to thank the LAMC for another great year. Thank you again, everybody.
Thank you, Anna.